What's up, everybody? My post-fight breakdown, UFC Fight Night, Gustafsson versus Smith for FightPicks.com. Once again, FightPicks.com. Link is below. Sign up with the promo code Jimmy Smith, all one word, and see how you do. Had a bad start to this one, but I finished strong. Part of the reason for the bad start, which I said in the initial video where I did the picks themselves, a lot of even fights, and not just even fights, fighters that were kind of in the middle of the pack, trying to separate themselves, trying to climb up the ladder. So a good night, and it's their fight. A good punch, a good moment, a good takedown, and that's it. So it's about who has the best night. No real blowouts, except for the first fight, which was a big upset, and I appreciate that a lot from Daniel Tamer. But anyway, and then the main and co-main, veterans, we know what they're going to do. We have more background, a better sense of how they do in big fights, stuff like this. So anyway, Daniel Tamer, Sung Bin Jo. Tamer came out and really threw hard punches, extremely aggressive, the best he's looked in the UFC, seemed confident, and it's one of those things where a lot of people ask me, when do you give credit to somebody for a great performance, and when do you criticize someone for a bad performance? When Kamaru Usman beat Tyron Woodley, and some people told me, they said, man, you were... It seems like you were more critical of Tyron Woodley's performance than you were praising Kamaru Usman's performance. And I understand that. But what I look at is, if someone comes out and does something, Daniel Tamer came out and threw hard punches, led with the lead hook a lot of uppercuts, and was aggressive. He didn't do anything crazy. He didn't do anything unexpected. He didn't do anything tricky. And Sung Bin Jo had no answer for it. Seemed shell-shocked. Seemed almost like, oh my God, this guy's trying to hit me. Standing very, very tall, chin very exposed, kind of loose with the hands, wasn't using his jab. If somebody comes at you with a basic game and you don't have a response for it, it's kind of on you. Your opponent's not coming out with anything great and you don't know how to deal with it. I think more of a collapse. Kamaru Usman fought like Kamaru Usman. He was very sharp. He was a good version of Kamaru Usman, but he didn't throw anything at Tyron Woodley that Tyron Woodley hadn't seen before from Kamaru Usman. It wasn't like Tyron Woodley was surprised. So that's why I went, man, Tyron Woodley looked bad, because this wasn't like a new Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman, medium range striker who was taking him down all the time. That should have been ready for that, and he wasn't. So this one, Daniel Tamer came out more aggressively than he normally does, more confident than he normally does, but Sung Bin Jo just didn't seem capable of dealing with a pretty standard offense on the feet and an aggressive guy coming at him throwing punches. If you can't deal with that, what kind of success do you expect to have in the UFC? He was a taller guy, wasn't using his jab. He was a rangier guard guy, didn't use his range. Not a lot of footwork. Seemed like he was trying to load that knee as Tamer was coming in all the time. That only works so many times. And he didn't seem to have a plan for a pretty basic offense. So disappointing fight by Sung Bin Jo and a great fight by Daniel Tamer. Glad he got his first UFC win. Big upset, though. Christos Giagos, Damir Hadzovic. Yeah, Christos looked good, was changing it up. Aggressive for the first round, starting to fade in the third, which I thought he would do, but not enough that Hadzovic was able to take the fight back. So Christos Giagos looked good on the feet. Really good accuracy with his uppercuts as well. I liked his boxing. I liked the timing of his takedown. Kenny Johnson, his wrestling coach, a guy I know very, very well, really had him prepared for this fight. Giagos can do some damage in the mid-level. Do I see him becoming a contender? It would take a lot for him to slide into the top 10 and get something done. Looks like a tough mid-level guy. Would need a dominant performance against a 10 to 15 kind of guy to move up, but good performance for him. Excellent job. Amirkhani over Chris Fishgold. Caught him in the Anaconda choke. Just caught him in a good choke. Chris Fishgold was looking pretty good up to that point, especially with the striking. He was the one moving forward. Amirkhani kind of playing the fence, and then Fishgold got caught on the ground, which is interesting because Chris Fishgold has a lot of submission skills himself. Won a lot of fights on the ground. So a bit of an upset in terms of the method, but good performance by Amirkhani. And then Rakis versus Manoa. KO, head kick, first round. I predicted that one really early. Pretty much what we expected. Jimmy Manoa came out very, very aggressively, and Rakis made him pay. And there you go. Highlight reel stuff. There's a lot of room for him to move forward. This division is wide open, 205. Very easy for a guy who has a big highlight reel knockout against Jimmy Manuwa to move up. Jimmy Manuwa, that's 4 in a row for him. Has faced some good talent, but you got to do better than that. If you're going to come in and be a brawling knockout guy, that's not a good way to end your career. 4 losses in the UFC. And it's not as though he has a wide range of skills. It's not like he can do a lot of stuff. So, I'll use the other tools in my toolkit. He's always been a step forward and brawl kind of guy. There's always room for a guy like that. Because he's exciting, he's physically big, he's aggressive, especially a card in the UK. He's a good guy to be on there, but that's the end of him in terms of he had any hope getting into the top 15 elite status kind of guy. That's probably the end for that. Might have another fight in the UFC. Maybe 4 in a row is tough, though. But Farakis, great job by him. He moves up in a big way. Now, Gustafsson versus Anthony Smith. I have to reference somebody. When I first broke this down, where is he? I'm looking for it right now. Robin P. I'm assuming that's your real name. Quote, I don't know about the research on this one. Gus got injured against Jones. That's why he couldn't pull the trigger. Gus has way too much skill for Smith. There's levels to this, as DC says. Yeah. Robin, I know about the injury. I do. But here's what I have to say. I understand your point. But, and that's just one person. I'm sure a lot of people thought the same thing. That when I first broke this down and made my pick that was Smith by decision, that the injury played a big factor in Gustafsson not fighting well against Jon Jones. Usually, and remember, I interview fighters before they fight and then see them fight and then see what they say afterward. So in my broadcast career, I was there for all 3 stages. And the first thing you got to remember is during the interview, everything's great, everything's fine, no injuries, everything's top of the line. And then they fight, and then afterward, we hear about all the injuries and everything that went wrong. So you have to take all of it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying Gustafsson didn't have an injury or didn't get one during the fight. The point is, how much a factor it is really depends on the performance of the fighter. Meaning, when a fighter wins, you rarely hear about what was wrong with them because they won. When a fighter loses, then it's, I had this, and that. And the difference between hurt and injured changes a lot depending on whether you win or you lose. Now, I'm not saying Gustafsson didn't have an injury. I'm not saying he's faking anything like that. My point is, when usually a fighter has a specific injury, it leads to a specific problem. Get what I'm saying? Someone with a broken hand won't throw the right hand a lot. A great example is Jose Aldo, scooter accident in Brazil. He doesn't throw leg kicks like he used to. He used to throw them all the time. Injured his leg. He doesn't throw it like he used to. Gustafsson against Jon Jones, he had a groin injury. But he didn't throw anything. He wasn't throwing punches. He wasn't really trying a whole lot of stuff. It was that idea that across the board, his offense didn't look good. He couldn't pull the trigger in any way. Now, if he had just been throwing hands and wasn't throwing any kicks or couldn't push on his takedown, okay, groin injury makes sense. A foot injury makes sense. Leg injury makes sense. He's throwing a lot of punches, but he's not moving a lot, for example. What I didn't like about the Jon Jones fight is overall, all of his offense looked hesitant. All of his aggression looked flat. Not just that certain part you would imagine would happen because of a groin injury or foot injury or anything else. So that's why I thought Jon Jones, the fight against Jon Jones, that Gustafsson might be done. And, of course, retired after the Anthony Smith fight. We'll see if that sticks. You never, ever know. But because that general hesitation, it seemed like it was up here, not any specific injury. I know he had one, but that's what I didn't, like Robin P. said, I didn't attribute his performance to Jon Jones to the injury because it seemed like a guy who all around was having trouble with his offense. That's a big symptom of the end, is when a fighter just can't pull the trigger like they used to. And that's what it seemed like with Gustafsson against Jones. Well, that's how it looked tonight against Smith. The first 2 rounds, he just wasn't pulling the trigger. And Anthony Smith, the way he was fighting very, very aggressively, like he always does, throwing a lot of looping punches, a lot of stuff with a lot of range on it that the old Alexander Gustafsson would have found more opportunities to counterpunch, would have found more ways to catch him on the inside, but he just couldn't quite get him as he was coming in. A leaping puncher like Anthony Smith in Gustafsson's prime, it's a very dangerous thing to be, a leaping puncher against Gustafsson, because his timing was so good. He threw so many combinations. The volume wasn't there tonight. This is a guy who had power in his one shot, did have one-shot power, did throw combinations, and was very technical. We saw flashes of all those things tonight, but his ability to put it all together when he was really in his title run, when he was really in his prime, that wasn't there. Yeah, we saw some power shots. We saw some combinations. We saw some accuracy. But his ability to flow seamlessly through all those phases, didn't see that tonight. So Anthony Smith looked good. It looked like the loss to John Jones didn't do a whole lot to him mentally. Big lights weren't a problem. Basically, I won't say a hometown fight. Scandinavia was going to be behind Gustafsson. So that didn't seem to bother Anthony Smith. He looked good. What's it going to take for him to get back into contention? Another couple good fights at 205. It's a thin division, plenty of room for rematches if he keeps winning. So big step forward for Anthony Smith. Is Gustafsson done? Of course, he retired after the fight, but we've seen that before, and you never know if it's final. Whenever someone can't throw, it's time to go. Whenever someone's taking too many beatings, it's time to go. Gustafsson hasn't taken a whole lot of beatings by comparison, but when your offense isn't there and you're not capable of defending yourself, that sucks. I don't want to see Gustafsson go down like that. I don't want to see that. So if he thinks it's time to go, it's time to go. And in a division like 205, where a bad fight or a bad few punches can really hurt you, and it's full of athletic, hard-hitting up-and-comers, might be time for Gustafsson to go. And that generation, Gustafsson, Shogun, all those all those guys who basically John Jones wiped out, that are at the end. Gustafsson is just an example of that. This next generation is coming up, and the young eat the old. That's how this sport works. So, good night of fights. Very, very exciting. My picks weren't good in the beginning. They got better at the end. But a lot of even matches. Fun to watch. And if Gustafsson calls it a career, he had a great one. He's an all-time great, really fun fighter at 205. A lot of fun to watch. And hope he has an excellent post-fight career, whatever it might be, because he was always fun to watch. But Anthony Smith came on top. It was his night. Good stuff for him. Anyway, I'll be back with more picks later. Enjoy this. Once again, fightpicks.com, Jimmy Smith, all one word. Sign up. It's free. See how you do. Later.